you ready for this?
Gonna be fun.
You will not stand in my way.
Frostborn, hunger. This pleases me.
I do not fear you, mortal.
Your soul shall be mine.
Don't make me laugh.
Who needs a brew? Oh, I do. Feel a shredding, baby. Let the battle begin.
Hello and welcome to the 33rd episode of The Nexus Trolls, a podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. So I'm your host, Linus Daz Kilius. I'm joined today, as always, by Liqiud. How's it going, Liqiud?
Going good, man.
And you may notice Mystic looks a little bit different this week. Mystic is being replaced just today. Don't worry, he's not being booted off the show. There's no roster apocalypse here. By Curubethion, a friend of Liquiud's. Liqiud, why don't you introduce your buddy here, Curub?
So Curb actually played on Mystic in my chair league team. Mystic and I's chair league team, I guess would be the right way to say that. Good guy, knowledgeable. Ended up in a odd working predicament, which kept him from playing last season with us. But recently, I guess I want to say a week ago when the PTR notes came out, he went on a little tweet storm, if you will, right? About Thrall and
almost 2 weeks ago.
I think it was. It was a long time. It was a while ago. And I read the tweet storm, and first of all, they were well written, right? And it was like it was a lot. And I was like, I told Daz, like, as soon as it was done, I'm like, dude, we need to get him on the show. Like, this is great. Like, this is what we talk about, and he's basically tweeting it for us. And Daz was like, yeah, that's cool. And then that week you weren't available, and then this week Mystic is gone, and I was like, dude. Like, literally 10 minutes ago, I'm like, Daz, like, this is perfect. Let's do it. And so we scrambled and made it all together, and that is Curubethion.
Yeah. And it worked out so well because today is the day we're doing a little bit of a deeper dive in Malthael. And if you notice the title of the show, Daz was wrong, don't listen to anything he said or whatever we ended up calling it, is because I was totally wrong, I think, on Malthael last week. Curb, I thought he would be underpowered, undertuned when I was playing him on the PTR, but looks like he's actually doing pretty well in terms of win rates. I played him a bit, and he feels a lot stronger than I expected. What are your initial thoughts on Malthael? We're going to go deeper into him in a bit, but what are your initial thoughts just off the top?
Yeah, it's really good to know. I got a little bit of chance to mess around with him on the PTR, but unfortunately it was like Q times are so killer for anything that's not AI.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I kind of I got to play around a little bit with his kit. You know, I watched McIntyre do some work on him, and I honestly wasn't sure either because he does have the makings of a squishy, hard to sustain bruiser. You know, I like that he's a bruiser, but he's got this sort of kit where he's almost all in, and you know, if you know all in characters, Butcher, they can have some problems, at least in coordinated play, and be better as, say, pub stompers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was, like I said, I was very concerned. I actually talked to the guys over at Gankbush Squad too, and they said pretty similar things. They said, you know, like they didn't see him feeling a different niche than even like a Lunara Gul'dan, like very like damage over time type characters. And we all said, hey, they can do it a lot safer, right? And Malthael's survivability was a bit of a question mark. That being said, I caught Dunk Train on another podcast, Into the Nexus, and he was saying, you know, he's looking pretty good. And then as soon as Dunk Train says something like that, you know, you got to listen, right? Because he knows what he talks about more than I do, more than we do, more than anyone on even the Gankbush Squad as well, too. So, but he had some good insights. I listened to that, and I was like, oh, maybe I should give this, you know, a second thought. And as soon as he released live, playing him against viable tanks, I played him against a couple triple tank comps, too, which is really nice.
That's got to be scary as a tank, man. I would not want to run into that.
Yeah, but I definitely felt what you said too, Curb. Like he was definitely that all in. Like the way I felt like it was like the Sonya or the Artanis. Like you're in, and you better like the fight better go in your favor, or else you're probably gonna end up dead.
See, that was the experience I had with him when I went all in. If my team wasn't with me, it was like, that's cool. I'm dead now. I'm just gonna go chill back here for 30 seconds. But when the team was there, it's like the kills happen. But if you're solo, forget it.
Okay, well, like I said, we're gonna go a little bit more into Malthael later. I don't want to
We'll save that.
get too into it before we even do the little bookkeeping stuff at the top, because we do have to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/trollsgg. This show's always gonna be free, guys, but if you're interested in supporting us, you can head over there, and we'd love to have your support. That being said, it was a pretty light news week this week. I mean, with the PTR hitting last week, we do obviously have a little bit to talk about the Mid Season Brawl and Malthael. Like I said, we're going to talk about a little bit of a deep dive there. But let's jump right into the news, shall we?
Someday, this will make a great story.
Okay, so Malthael's bargain event has started. Liqiud, do you want to take us through this again? You took us through it last week.
All right. So this is kind of a cool event. You basically play 15 games with a friend in either AI, QM, ranked, or unranked draft as heroes from the Diablo universe, and that's important because I was talking to my wife about it, and she's like, "Oh my God, why didn't you tell me before that we could play Team League and all of my quests would get completed?" This one you have to play Diablo characters. You cannot just play any random thing and get it to count. But if you play 15 games with a friend, with a Diablo hero, you will get Leoric's Phantom and an epic loot chest in Heroes of the Storm. And in Diablo 3, when they release the newest patch that's coming out, you will get the Ghost Kerrigan wings. It starts, obviously, this week. It started yesterday when the patch hit live, and it runs all the way through June 26th, which in theory is when the summer patch comes out with the summer event and all the beach wear on June 27th. Excuse me.
You guys saving all your shards for that one? I definitely am.
Somebody looks excited.
Tychus in a Speedo? Of course.
I saved a lot, I'm not going to lie. But I did craft Angry Cloud.
Yeah.
I wanted Angry. I wanted a Cloud, and my wife goes, "Yeah, Angry Sushi, you should do that."
Those are out?
Yeah.
Yes, but you can only craft them. You can't buy them with gems, which is
you can craft them?
Yeah, but they're like 2,400 shards, dude.
There are a lot of shards. Yeah, I saw that too, and I was like, ooh.
It's not cheap.
It's a lot. I wanted to save my shards for specifically Tychus and a Speedo.
Right. I wanted all three clouds and saw that price and went, yeah. I'm going to wait. I'm just going to get the one.
Like a week or two?
Well, and they're coming out in boxes, right? So you could potentially get them out of a box. But I did not have that luck. I did open all my boxes that I had saved up over the last week-ish or so.
Were you also saving boxes for Malthael?
No, I just outright bought him with gems. Okay. I bought that bundle, and I bought the bundle with Sir Mercs a lot and Talrasha and the skins.
Liquid's always going to get everything pretty much. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. Yep, pretty much.
Okay, just revisiting
Malthael's bargain.
Revisiting last week's patch, too, there's just a few things now that it's come live, the PTR patch. There's a few things that I want to bring up. We did go over it in detail last week, so we're not going to go over a lot of the reworks and everything. But one thing we did forget to mention, actually, was that Varian is now considered a tank for QM matchmaking, which is amazing. Because I loved queuing up as either Varian or Tyrande, because I'd be like, oh, perfect. The other team's not going to get a tank or a healer. But at least the Varian side of that's fixed. So now he's considered a true tank, too, because generally, the tank builds where people are going. And if you've got tank Varian on one side and no tank on the other, it usually doesn't go too well.
There are already people upset by this in Reddit. Because now, when they're with
Reddit.
Varian, the other team has a proper tank, and they're queued with somebody that goes Twin Blades or Colossus Smash, and no parry talents.
I joked about that, but the fact that it's actually happening.
Yes, there are people already complaining on Reddit about that.
There always will be. I feel like this is better than the other way.
Yeah.
Because
no, I agree. This change had to be made. I just want to point out that people on Reddit are already unhappy.
Where I might be annoyed is if it was 5 versus 5 tanks, and the one's got a Varian on the other side, because then he can go more like Assassin-y, right? But that never happens. So Malfurion, we were curious how he was going to hit. He's hovering around 50%, so it looks like what Blizzard did is balanced him, at least in the Hero League. I know that, we'd think in competitive play, he's pretty much not going to be seen anymore because of the lack of cleanse specifically, at least in a single healer role. And Dunk Train, like I mentioned before from his Into the Nexus interview, pretty much said the same thing. That cleanse nerf was just too hard to keep him in competitive. It's just such an important talent.
So I want to throw something out there about this. His rate wasn't that high to begin with.
Yeah.
And I think the 50-ish% is really just if you were to dig into the games. All right. So first, this is my opinion. Daz, if you were prepared, we'd probably tinfoil hat me here. But I honestly, is he's looking for right now? Oh God, he still got it. Ah! All right. Let me just right. Yep. All right. So my tinfoil hat now properly in place. I would say that most of those games, and the reason he's still hovering around 50%, are because a chunk of those games are where the other, like, no matter what healer you had in that mouth slot, if you had a true healer, they would have won that game, right? It's less about mouth being that good and more about that's just the healer they have, in, like the true healer they have in that spot. So,
yeah,
we'll see.
And looking at it now, other than Uther, pretty much all of the healers are hovering within a percentage or two of 50%, which is great. It's a fairly balanced healer match. It's no longer.
And then there's Uther.
Yeah, then there's Uther. It's impossible to get like everything. It's going to be like 100 years before Blizzard has everyone balanced perfect 50%. Uther is obviously like a little bit higher than the others currently, but pretty much everyone else is around the same. Ariel and Lucio particularly has been hit pretty hard with his nerf, I think from whatever it was about a month ago. He's down to 45.9%, but still, and Ariel's got her place on certain maps too. But
and I think the interesting thing about Uther is we even saw how OP Uther is just in the last week at Mid Season Brawl. There's a reason he was picked all the time.
I'm going to be interested to see if that comes out over the next couple weeks in increased popularity, because, we don't always see things filter through very quickly to Hero League. You'll find somebody who first bans Kael'thas.
Oh, for sure. Yep. And you look at the popularity numbers even on Hot Slugs too, and you go down the list and you see Malthael still extraordinarily popular, even though
75% of games.
Yeah, and that might just be because they're in his comfort zone, right? Like everyone's so used to playing.
That plays into my 50% win rate discussion, right? He's so popular, like it's bound to happen that he's going to be at a 50% win rate. If you took Rhaegar and Rhaegar was at the same popularity that Malfurion had, he would have a 50% win rate at this point, because just like statistically, that's how it would end up working out.
Yeah.
Right. The total games played 1,800 versus 2,700. If you played 900 more games, Rhaegar, you were bound to get at least another percentage point out of your win rate.
That's 1,700 games is pretty statistically relevant. I think that's pretty close to what his true win rate is going to be.
I don't know, man. Like, I'm just looking at the games played banned with Malf, and I'm like, those numbers still aren't right.
Well, they'll come down once people realize he hasn't the Malf of like a month ago, right? And like Curb was saying, things do lag behind a little bit because people not everyone reads the patch notes. A lot of people are probably playing Malf not realizing he changed.
That's what I'm saying. Like, because people don't realize it, they're playing Malf and they're picking Malf over other healers. Where if you picked Rhaegar instead of the Malf, you would still be getting the same win rate because Malf has now been nerfed to the level of Rhaegar. That's what I'm saying, Daz.
I'm not going to argue the point.
Debate time.
Speaking of Rhaegar, yeah, we do need to. You can tell we're due for one of our debate segments. We'll have to do one next week once Mystic gets back here too. But that being said, I almost feel like Rhaegar, maybe outside of Uther, is kind of my general healer of choice now.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, Thrall isn't OP. This is, again, why you shouldn't trust anything I said from last week. I thought Thrall was going to come out fairly strong. Turns out he's sitting at a very unhealthy 44 win percentage. Now, that might just be because people are getting used to the new Thrall, playing around with his builds and such. He did have, I think it was over 1,000 games played on Hot Slogs. But yeah, I haven't seen him everywhere, and I don't feel like he's OP when I'm playing against him in matches now. So I guess Thrall is not as strong as I thought it was going to be.
If there's anything that may be contributing to that, it's possibly the fact that, at least in theory, the Frostwolf resilience nerf was balanced by the fact that you're getting more stacks, but I honestly don't feel like I'm getting a lot more Frostwolf stacks to compensate for the fact that the nerfing took a 33% hit.
Yeah, and there's so many interesting new changes to his kit, and I guess it's hard to balance these things and know what outweighs the others. But just the one thing that I thought particularly was very strong was how they changed his Spirit Wolves, and the fact that it no longer stops at one hero. You get that AoE heal more AoE route now instead of just the single target route, and that feels pretty good.
Oh, I've done things with that. I love that.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty amazing, especially if you're getting chased down. You throw it back at the first hero that hits you. It gets an extra 25% per hero it hits. You can potentially root the whole team and get away scot-free. Whereas before I felt like it was a bit more difficult.
Now, one thing. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
One thing that I think might be going on here is, a lot of these talents, they definitely seemed pretty nuts when you sat down and looked. I did like a huge breakdown of all the talents. I'm like, man, this talent is really great. And I think a great example of what I'm going to talk about is Maelstrom Weapon, right? I'm like, whoa, this talent, you get +1 attack damage for every attack you make during your Wind Fury. And, whoa, you get permanent move speed, except that it competes with follow-through.
Right.
And, I'm doing this quest, and I'm sometimes, I'm getting to 40 stacks, but over the course of the whole game, that's about all I get. So I'm getting 40 extra damage per attack. Cool. But follow through would have given me like 100-something bonus damage on most of my attacks.
Right.
And that might be a lot of, like you said, what's happening. There's so many questing talents now too. Like maybe Thrall is just getting that situation where there's just too many quests to complete, and it's either scales maybe well into the very late game if you can get those stacks up, but questing talents innately are more difficult to complete and have a later power spike than ones that just give you your 40% extra attack damage after you throw out a basic ability, which you're throwing out tons of as Thrall with something like a follow through.
So a couple of things. Hold on, I just changed my sort. So Thrall really doesn't get a whole lot of play, period, right? Like I'm looking at before this past patch update to him, he really wasn't getting a ton of play to begin with, right? So his win rate wasn't great. It was okay. It was a little higher than it is now. It was 46.3 instead of the 44 he's sitting at right now. But there are 6 other sustained. I'm going off of what Hot Slugs calls them. There's 6 other sustained damage characters.
Yeah.
They're picked more frequently than Thrall. And again, I come into, okay, if you think about the people that really know how to play Thrall, the people that read the patch notes and really understand the changes that were made and what to pick and what not to pick, those people have all moved on to other sustained damage heroes because they're all looking at that going, well, Thrall's like his whole build is just kind of useless now. They've moved on, and so the people you still have playing Thrall are the people that are like tried and true, like, I'm a diehard Thrall fan. I'm gonna keep playing Thrall, right? And I use the same build, and I don't care what the patch notes say, and I have to change this one skill, but whatever, like. So I feel like you get a lot of that kind of leftover. It's almost, and I almost feel like that's kind of what we're seeing with Malf right now too, because a lot of, we'll see, right? We'll see how it shakes out now that the season just reset. But I think as you start to look at the higher level, you'll see less Malf play, less Thrall play, and things like that, right? Where you'll see just like the tried and true fans staying with it. And the tried and true fans, while I love them and I'm one of them, God, I wish ETC wasn't as bad as he is now. They don't, like, their win rate just isn't high enough to really skew the numbers in favor of a strong hero, right? So it's either the flavor of the month is really strong, or the fans that just aren't able to drive the numbers up high enough for that hero to have a higher win percentage.
Now, one thing I do think we can say is a win here is that Thrall's talent tree is definitely a lot more interesting now.
Yes.
I haven't had a chance to play around with it, but I really like a lot of the options that you get now. And I think, if his win rate continues to suffer, they can bump up a few numbers, and he'll not only have an interesting talent tree, but a really good win rate to support it.
I completely agree with, and I think if you look at talents picked, they're way more even now than they used to be, right? So Blizzard has succeeded in its we want talent diversity. I think they might have gone a little too far with Thrall, though.
We might see, over the next couple of weeks, too, his win rate creep up as well as people try and figure out Thrall.
Yeah.
One of the Problem is a lot of people, draft Thrall as a solo laner, and one of his level 1 questing talents is definitely not one that you probably want to take if you're in the solo lane where you've got to hit 2 heroes with each, throw out a chain lightning. I think it's called crash lightning. But things like that too, you might get people taking that and be like, oh crap, I got a solo lane now, and realizing they just kind of wasted that talent because you're not going to get value out of that going down the road. So a lot of it might just be people figuring out Thrall still and figuring out how to play the new Thrall and where to situationally pick his new talents as well. So Stitches has crept up a little bit. He does want to play. He's slowly creeping back up. He's a beefy, hard-to-kill tank, that's for sure. What do you think about him, Liqiud?
So I actually love Stitches. I occasionally struggle with my hooks, not gonna lie. But I actually love Stitches, and I like the changes they made. But what's weird is, like, even now, with the changes, I think, especially if you've been watching Mid Season Brawl, like, a lot of Stitches players were going just straight up slam build. And that seems to still be the case. So there's like, and there's more talents that are more tanky, but it feels like everybody just goes straight slam build, which is fine and is winning. His win percentage is higher than it was. It's up 3.5% now. It's over 50, which is great. I like Stitches. I think Blizzard needs to think about redoing him. I feel like I'm going to go out to hotspatchnotes.com to check, but I feel like it's time for him to get a rework.
Interesting.
Got to be careful with Stitches. You don't want to make him too oppressive.
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem, right? Like, maybe Blizzard's happy with him being the I can hook you and we're going to kill you out of nowhere, right? Which is cool. He definitely has that.
It's very Pudge.
Right, but I feel like, I mean, I'm looking real quick, like, they've never really reworked Stitches truly. He has been impacted by changes to other heroes. So, like, that's what we saw this time. They removed Bolt of the Storm because they reworked Bolt of the Storm, or they got rid of it for a lot of heroes, right? So they tweaked a couple other things, but, like, I'm looking at it right now, and I don't see him really being reworked, right? A couple of things changed way back in October of 2015. I
think he gets like a change here, a change there.
Right. But it's never like hey, we acknowledge that we could do something better with Stitches, so we're gonna rework him. It's always like a little tweak here, a little tweak there, and maybe that's okay. His win rate's going up. He's a strong character, right?
Yeah, those level 20 upgrades, pretty good.
Yeah, but you know what? I had a chance to play with Hungry Stitches, and it was not good. Like, it just wasn't. And then I went into Cannibalize, and, like, dude, like, if you get to 20, like, so here's the thing with Stitches. If you get to 16, you're hooking people from God knows where. Like, they can be, like, half the screen away. You can't even see them. You're hooking them. If you can get to 20, you're, like, you're not kill. Forget it. Like, Stitches lives forever at 20.
Suddenly, you're some sort of Ultra Butcher tank.
Right. It's like, oh, you think you're gonna kill me? You know what the problem with that is like, I feel like the design of the game lately has been not to make maps that go to 20. So it's great for Stitches to be God tier at 20, but it's like, if I only get to 20 1 out of 6 games, is that like, something's not right there? You know what I mean? And I think that's where I struggle, because I know Stitches is God tier at 20 when he gets cannibalized. And there are other things that, like, work, right? And like Scud McKenzie's saying in Twitch chat, it's the same reason they leave Raynor alone. Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. The same reason they leave Raynor alone is why they leave Stitches alone. I guess I'm just advocating for maybe it's time to relook at some of those early heroes, right? They reworked a lot of Sylvanas, and she was an early hero. They've reworked a lot of early heroes. Maybe it's time for them to come back around to Stitches or Raynor, or maybe not, right? Maybe there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, well, Stitches has this very niche role, and we're going to leave him there, and that's what he fills. He's still fun to play. I enjoy playing him, especially if you have a team around you. He's great fun to play, right? Like, hook into a root, like, bye-bye, you're dead. So, yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
There's Liquid's rant for the day, right? The first one of many about Stitches.
It's like, we're just getting started, man.
Hey, well, let's move on to our next topic. We're going to talk about Creators of the Storm. This is a tournament that both myself, Liqiud, and Mystic are going to be involved in. It's actually a tournament where all the participants are content creators for Heroes of the Storm, which is really cool. You can check it out at creatorsofthestorm.com. There's a lot of information there. We just recently finalized the roster, so I can do a bit of a roster announcement. The actual tournament's taking place on June the 24th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's being cast by Halloran. So the best thing to do if you want to just kind of get started on it, head over to twitch.tv/Halloran, and you can check out the event there. One of the neat things about the event is not only is it getting cast by Halloran, but it's going to be cast by the individual teams themselves as well. So Team A versus Team B, you can actually go to their streams, listen to their side of the action too. We're going to have multi-Twitch links set up, so you can actually watch all three streams, the caster and both sides of it, simultaneously, and you can pick which audio track you want to listen to too, which will
That's really cool.
Which will be a cool experience. I think it's fairly unique. I haven't seen anyone do something like that as of yet. So for the first set of games starting at 4, it's going to be Team 1 versus Team 2. I'm sure we'll have team names before the tournament actually shakes out. Team 1 consists of myself, Liqiud, Mystic, obviously from the Nexus Trolls. And we're playing with Bags and Guaz from the weekly Blizz. You might also know Bags from Troll and HGC with Liqiud, which is going to be on the show, shortly after this one starts. We're going to be streaming that one as well. We're playing against Fringe Average, Old Backpack, Bacon, and Tower Baron from the Gankbush squad, as well as Illbeard, a writer for BlizzPro.com, who we've had on the show a couple times, and we always say that he's our pretty much like crack research team, because we always check his site to see if there's anything we missed before starting the show. But more interestingly, we are issuing a challenge to the Gankbush squad. We are so confident that we're going to win. I'm talking to you, Bacon. You hear the bacon sizzling. I can smell the bacon a mile away.
Can you smell the bacon?
I can smell the bacon. I can smell it sizzling already. Fringe Average. We're going to show you that you're definitely an average type Fringe. Old Backpack. You're going to need a new backpack after this one, bud. And Tower Baron. Well, he's Tower Baron. We're not too concerned about him. So what we're going to do is we're proposing a wager. And it's up to you guys to accept this wager or not. And I know that a bunch of you do listen to the show. If we win, or when we win, we're going to provide you with a script that you have to read on air during your next show, praising the greatness of the three of us while simultaneously saying how horrible the four of you are at Heroes of the Storm. If we lose, in the very off chance that maybe 2 of us DC, and that's probably what it would take, you'll provide us with a script, and we'll publicly read it on our show. And just to up the ante, put a little bit of the icing on the cake there, if you happen to win, if the blue moons seem to align, we'll also do our next show with no pants on. Liqiud says that's not much of a difference because he always does his shows with no pants, but still, we'll be pantless for our show. And for those audio listeners, don't worry, you can only see us from our neck up, so there's no X-rated portion of our show, but we'll still do it like that.
Yeah, that might get us more viewers.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, the Gankbush squad, they pitch themselves as the only explicit podcast, so I figured we had to put like a little bit of explicit nature into it there.
So I want to add something to that. Stitches is gonna hook one of you guys during that game.
Okay, so boys, you've been challenged. It's up to you to accept. I know I think they record tomorrow, and they probably post it a couple of days from now, so hopefully they'll catch us before then. So we're doing best of 3s, so that'll be the first round of 3 there. The second round of 3 will probably be around 5:30, just given how long typical round of 3s take. And at the Team 3 versus Team 4 will be playing there. Team 3 is going to be led up by TBK Zord from Lords of the Storm podcast, Ro from Realm Maintenance, and Rosé, Kyle, and one other from Lords of the Exodar. They're a bunch of YouTubers, a bunch of good guys who put out some content on YouTube as well, a bunch of friends that put out some gaming highlights for Overwatch, Diablo, as well as Heroes of the Storm. And they're going to be playing against team number 4, which is DJ Tyrant, Balrog Fan, Zexarius, Artifice, and P Flame G from Heroes Power Hour, another popular Heroes of the Storm podcast. So that's our lineup. The winners are going to be playing each other, and the losers are going to be playing each other, and so that means we'll end up having 4 best of 3 matches in this little creators tournament that we got. A lot of great personalities, and everyone's going to be on comms too. So a great event, again, cast by Halloran too. So we got a really great caster who cast Heroes of the Dorm, if you remember correctly too. Okay, another neat thing too is we're actually going to be having unique kind of game rule sets given to each game. These are going to be pulled out of a hat, so the contestants or participants won't even know what the games are until just minutes before we start. Just a couple ideas of the ones we've been cooking, and if you have any ideas too, we haven't finalized the list, so definitely send along any ideas you have. A few of them, just a little bit of a teaser here. Horde versus the Alliance. So you'll be locked into drafting Horde versus Alliance characters. We're going to have, potentially, if it gets pulled out of the hat, the reverse draft. So you draft for the other team. You get to pick who they play. And we're going to have a Twitch vote. So the Twitch viewers, I don't know how we're going to moderate that, are going to get to choose who is the next in the draft. So I imagine we're going to see...
Exclamation point Murky.
I was going to say, a lot of Murkies, a lot of Abathurs, a lot of Lost Vikings. Oh my goodness. I have to dust off my Lost Vikings
Nova.
play. Yeah, Nova. Oh my. It's going to be interesting to see how Twitch trolls us there. So that's going to be a great event. Again, creatorsofthestorm.com. Check it out. It's just on June 24th. Again, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's a Saturday. And hopefully, I don't think any big esports events are happening that because it's right after the Mid Season Brawl concludes. So hopefully we'll have that week off. And that's why we scheduled that week on purpose.
You just better hope that like none of your opponents DC. However, might pull in McIntyre to replace him.
I know.
No, we've talked about that. That won't be happening.
Yeah. We've also balanced the teams pretty well. I think we got a very wide range of skill sets. It's kind of like a lighthearted tournament. I mean, obviously, we're all going to be trying to play our hardest, but it's not going to be super competitive to the level of, master level play or anything like that. So we are also, me and myself and Liqiud were talking about this, and this is just kind of in the conceptual stage. We're going to be putting on another event, I guess, or a series of videos. We're going to, if you remember, when the League of Legends players came over to Heroes of the Storm and had Try Hard for Good, that was, remind me of their names now. We had Skara, Voyboy, and Dyrus coming from League of Legends. They were coached by professional Heroes of the Storm's players, and they ended up getting thrown into Hero League for a period of a few weeks and to see how far they can get, and they're playing for charity. Well, we're going to do something similar. Not for charity, because we don't have any money to give anybody. But we're going to have myself, Liqiud, and likely Mystic. We haven't thrown it by Mystic yet. We're going to coach people who've never played Heroes of the Storm before, and they're not League of Legends pros or anything like that, just people who've never played maybe even MOBAs before. And we're going to record them, stream them, put them up on YouTube, and we're going to see, how they end up faring in Hero League, the salty place that it is. So this is just conceptual, but keep an eye out for that. We'll probably be starting that, within about a month's time or so. So it's just a pre-announcement to an announcement, I guess.
Man, like you start that now. Who knows? Like a few years time, maybe you'll start doing it with like Hearthstone pros.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You never know.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to get Criparian over here or something.
He plays already.
I know. I actually caught him playing, I think, on stream a few weeks ago, and he put his initial thoughts about it and everything too. He wasn't hooked like we are, but
despite all the stitches that he was playing.
Yeah. But for my experience, it took me probably a few solid weeks of playing the game to get its hooks dug in me pretty deep. Okay, Liqiud, we had a bit of an event in the esports world.
It's still going, man.
We are in the process of having an esports event. So with that, let's start Liqiud Esports Corner. Cue the bumper.
Hey yo, how you doing? It's time for Liqiud's Esports Corner. That's right. And you're gonna want to stick around for this.
All right, take away Liqiud.
All right, so if you have, first I'm gonna before I even get into Mid-Season Brawl, Blizzard put together a really helpful post on all of the changes that happened in EU, NA, Korea. All the roster apocalypse stuff that was going on. We linked it in the show notes. It's just player movement. It goes out to the Blizzard article. Really easy to follow. Some team names, green and red. Green for coming to the team, red for leaving the team. Great stuff. Also, the only other thing I want to mention about roster apocalypse, we'll really go in depth on this on at Troll and HEC tonight. But the only other thing I want to throw out there is there is a pseudo rumor right now that I want to make sure I get this right before I say it, and now I lost my thought. Where was it? Sorry, guys. The E-Star is leaving Heroes of the Storm. Nobody's confirmed. Nobody's said anything. but there's a rumor that they're all retiring after Mid-Season Brawl. We're trying to get more information about that, of course, and it'd be really sad because they're dominating Group B right now. But we'll see what happens, and we're going to talk a lot about this on Troll and HGC tonight, both in the what happens if E-Star leaves and why there's not a lot more big name teams coming into Heroes of the Storm and HGC. But with that said, all right, Mid-Season Brawl. Holy crap, if you didn't watch today, you got to watch today. Not only do we have great games, but there were 2 tiebreakers today in Group B. E-Star Gaming, or I'm sorry, Dignitas and L5 played each other for second place. Not going to spoil that. I'm spoiling it a little bit because you guys know who is in the 2 groups in the top 4. And Tempo Storm and, damn, who was it? Shoot. I should know this. Now I don't remember. See this as I am a wreck today. All right. Tempo Storm and Soul Torturers. That's why I couldn't remember because it was a small, minor region team. Played in a tiebreaker because Tempo Storm almost didn't make it, which would have, like, I love Tempo Storm, I love NA, but it would have made my day for Roll20 to be the only NA team to make it into the group stage. Like, I would have been so happy if that would have happened, but it didn't. Tempo Storm's in, so now actually Tempo Storm plays Roll20 Saturday, and I'm hoping Roll20 will roll Tempo because quite honestly, Glaurung deserves like to do good in an international. Like, that guy's, the whole team is busting ass to do a good job, but like, it's Glaurung, and I like the guy. So what can you say? But with that said, the elimination bracket starts on Saturday at 4 a.m. Eastern. On Sunday, the next part of that is also at 4 a.m. Eastern, and then we have 2 games on Monday. We have a game at 9:30 a.m. Eastern and a game at 2 p.m. Eastern. The 2 p.m. Eastern is the grand finals. I believe between those 2 games is when the All-Star game is going to happen, which would be cool to see. Bags asked last week on Twitter, and I've been like retweeting and asking the same question. If you're in the grand finals, right, and let me ask you guys this. If you're in the grand finals and you're an All-Star, do you want to play in the All-Star game, or are you like just trying to be focused on the grand finals? Like, would you play that?
What do you think, Curb?
I mean, the All-Star game is just kind of, it's a thing. It's for fun.
Right.
It's like the grand finals is where it's at, right?
Right.
Right. Like, that's the one that counts. You know,
Right.
That's the one with the prestige. That's the one with actual consequences. Like, I never really took any All-Star games as something that you did super seriously. So.
Right, but would you want to distract yourself? All right, let me put it to you this way. Football players don't go to the Pro Bowl if they're in the Super Bowl.
There's an injury
Right.
concern there too, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean...
Can you imagine someone like pulls like their finger or something, their clicking
Right?
finger, their index finger? It's like,
Like, what if you're walking to the stage and you trip and you get a concussion? Like, I mean, shit happens, dude. Like, do you really want to? I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to do the All-Star game if I was going in the grand finals. I would think I'd want to just be focused on getting ready for the grand finals.
you know what I can draw a parallel to here is I was playing Heroes of the Storm last night and I caught Mystic online. And I was like, Mystic, don't you have a final tomorrow morning? And he's like, well, you can't stay all the time. I was like, true. Maybe it's needed to unwind a little bit. And maybe it's a good kind of stress reliever. You can go in, not have to like think too much and just kind of, sit there and have a little bit of fun with Heroes of the Storm, which, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of these pro players probably have felt like the fun's been missing, which is why you probably see a lot of these people retiring or switching teams, just the stressful situations that they get into.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, that's my thought.
Maybe you're right. I
don't know.
All right. Fair enough. But all right, so let's go into. I'm gonna just go through the top 4 in both groups, and then we can move on. So top 4 in Group A: MVP Black finished first, Fnatic second, Roll20 third, and Nomia fourth. Great showing from Nomia. I'm happy to see those guys made it into the actual elimination bracket out of group stage. Obviously, Roll20 and Nomia in the bottom bracket to start. MVP Black and Fnatic both in the top bracket. Over to Group B, we have E-Star Gaming and Team Dignitas in the top bracket is 1 and 2. L5 shocking everybody, ending up in the bottom bracket as number 3. And Tempo Storm squeaking by. I say squeaking by. They kind of dominated the game against Soul Torturers. Into Group B's last spot to get in the lower bracket. Tempo Storm, of course, playing Roll20 first, and Nomia playing L5 in their lower bracket game to move forward. So MVP Black Team Dignitas will be a good game, and Fnatic E-Star will be a good game. All of the games, actually, that are coming up for the elimination brackets are looking good. It's going to be rough getting up at 4 o'clock Saturday and Sunday, but I'll be up watching.
Most people will be catching the VODs, but Liqiud has
I'll be
to
at
watch
work.
live. Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, I might end up waking up a little bit later and just doing what I did with Korea towards the end of the season, regular season, where I'd just start it when I got up, but I'd go all the way back to the very first and just run the stream from there. The problem with that is that means I can't have Twitter open because, like, my Twitter is full of spoilers, like, nonstop spoilers.
Yeah.
Also, I'm going to delay this one more minute because Pleb came and asked a good question out in Twitch chat. I do agree that NA versus NA feels rough. Like, it shouldn't. It feels weird having to go into a Tempo Storm versus Roll20. But I guess I have a couple of comments. Even though I told Bags last week I didn't think Tempo Storm would finish in the top 2, I actually thought Roll20 had a chance to get top 2. Shame on me, but, you know, whatever. I like Roll20. I like those guys. So I get the problem with getting NA versus NA, but, you know, I guess the reality is we're going to see 1 versus 2 from each group, and we're going to see 1 versus 2 from the bottom brackets. So, like, it was bound to happen. I guess if we really didn't want to see NA versus NA, the only comment I can make is Tempo Storm should have done better or Roll20 should have done better. You know, take your pick. Either Roll20 should have done better and finished in the top 2, or Tempo should have finished 3 or in the top 2, right? In the top 3 either way. So, you know. But the nice thing about NA versus NA, one of the things Caldor tweeted right away, right after Tempo Storm beat Soul Crushers, or Soul Torturers rather, was, you know, at least now we're guaranteed to have a number 6 NA finish, right? So either Roll20 or Tempo is going to finish number 6 in this tournament, guaranteed. So, I mean, that, like, let's compare that to the last international tournament. That's a step up, right? Like, not only do we have 2 teams in the top 8, but we're guaranteed top 6. We've already surpassed our last international. And, you know, let's be honest. I think Tempo or Roll20 could take a game off of the loser from the group above. It's just going to come down to, you know, who's going to have the best day. So.
Well, fingers crossed. It'll be nice to see NA potentially, you know, it maybe years down the road actually be a little bit more competitive in these events.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Curb.
I still can't get over the Roll20 sponsorship. That I think that's been the biggest surprise, not just of my HOTS career, but maybe of, like, my entire life.
Pretty cool. I mean, I was, like, stoked when I saw it.
It is. It's like, how are 2 of these things that I enjoy in totally different spheres of my life coming together like this?
Right. Well, you know what I found most interesting was, like, they picked a good team for it too.
Yeah.
But now the challenge is, and Bags and I talked about this a lot last week, and we'll probably talk about this for a long time to come. Now Roll20 needs to figure out how to get the infrastructure, or to, you know, the guys that were Team 8 and are now Roll20 Esports, to support them and really push them forward, right? Dig has a lot of infrastructure. Fnatic has infrastructure. E-Star has infrastructure. Like, if you look at the top 4, right? And I think this is probably the most telling. Or even if you look at the top 8, 6 of the top 8 teams have infrastructure behind them. You have MVP Black, you have Fnatic, you have Tempo Storm, L5, Dignitas, and E-Star Gaming. Those are reputable, with backing, esports organizations, right? And then we have Nomia and Roll20. I don't know much about Nomia. I know the guys, like, work their ass off. Like, that team, like, pushes, like, nonstop. They're always pushing. I'm hoping Nomia the org can do more to support them, and then Roll20. And so it'll be telling to me to see what Roll20 does, especially after this performance. This is a team that came together on a whim to say, hey, here's 5 guys, let's see if we can qualify, and they're guaranteed top 8 at the first true international. Like, that's freaking huge. Can we please, like, roll some infrastructure to these guys? Get them a coach, get them a manager, get them, get them the things they need to be more successful. Like, can we please do that and see NA esports, like, start to become a thing instead of this, yeah, it's cool, man. It's cool that you play video games for your career. Like, I wouldn't let my kid do that, but it's cool that you do that. Like, it needs to move out of that and into, this is a sports organization. We're going to put some resources behind it. Because I guarantee you, if these were 5 kids playing 5-on-5 competitive soccer, like, we would have a whole league developed around these guys at this point, right? But instead, it's cool that you play video games, man. Good luck with making money on that, right? And it drives me nuts. And I'm hoping Roll20 will help, bring some resources to bear. I don't expect them to change NA as a whole, but, like, do something for the team you have decided to sponsor as your esports organization's first step, and, like, throw some money at it and, like, really help these guys become what they can be.
So what you're saying, Liqiud, is that Blizzard needs to convert the entire Heroes game into, like, virtual soccer.
Right. Then maybe they'd get some money.
It'd be like the next Rocket League,
Maybe they'll hire Chew8 as a correspondent, right, or something.
As a correspondent? Oh, I mean, but, like, if you think about it, right, it's just, like, esports as a whole doesn't get the respect that regular sport gets in America, which is fine. Like, I get that there's a stigma to overcome. I'm not mad at people for there being a stigma. I'm mad at organizations not trying to fight the stigma.
It'll happen. I think just like anything, it's a matter of time chipping away at it, right? Okay. Malthael. We're going to deep dive into Malthael a little bit here. The Reaper of Souls from the Diablo franchise has come to the Nexus. He's a Malthael assassin. His win rate, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, is a little bit above 50%, 52.8% last time I checked HOTS log. So, like Mystic said, he's pretty balanced. Maybe we should listen to Mystic. If you listen to me, I thought he was going to come out with a low 40s win rate. So, what we're going to do here is we're just going to go over his kit a little bit, and then we're going to talk about his talent tree, along with just some choices we think we should be making along the way when you're selecting his talent choices, as well as maybe just some initial impressions about Malthael. And I know Curb has done a lot of number crunching as well on this side as well, so I'm sure he'll be chiming in along the way.
Granted, like, the number crunching I did was all pre-PTR patch notes. I just checked on that. Basically, I just did number crunching based on when they had the Malthael page out there.
Yeah.
On the initial reveal, and that didn't have a lot of numbers, but
I want to throw one other thing out there too. His pick rate and his popularity is, like, really low for where his win rate is right now.
He's had his number of games, though, so statistically relevant. I'm going to throw that back in there. Right. And also, a lot of people haven't had the chance to bring him into Hero League yet. You got to get him to level 5.
True. For sure, right? I should have prefaced that with saying I don't think there's been a statistically insignificant number of games. Just, if you look at his popularity versus win percentage, like, it doesn't follow the typical chart that we normally see.
It honestly, it looks a lot closer to a case like Vikings or Rexar, where you've got a very small percentage of people and a very high win rate to go with that niche popularity, which is kind of unusual.
Well, I'm going to go against the grain and say that he may be a fairly popular, especially against, like, a double tank type setup too, or a melee heavy team. And after we go over the kit and the traits and maybe talk about it a little bit, maybe you guys will see why. I'm sure if you've played any games, in unranked or quick match in the last couple of days, you've come across Malthael probably in most of them. Like we said, maybe not in Hero League, because a lot of people don't have him at level 5 yet, don't feel comfortable enough to bring him into Hero League, but he does seem like a lot of people don't know how to play against him yet. A lot of people don't know how to play as him, so there's a lot of a learning curve always involved with new heroes. So going over his kit, his trait is very important to who Malthael is. His Reaper's Mark is his trait. Basic attacks afflict non-structured targets with Reaper's Mark for 4 seconds. Marked enemies are revealed and take damage equal to 2.5% of their maximum health every second. His 3 basic abilities, Soul Rip, which is on a 2-second cooldown, is really important because you can spam the hell out of this. You extract the souls of nearby enemies. I like literally sit there with my finger on the Q button.
Ding, 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 ding.
Just tapping as fast as I can.
Like, this is like playing Lily.
Yeah.
It is. It feels like it. Well, McIntyre, I think I saw him play a game where he pid Lily and was like smashing the keyboard against his head to see if he could play well. I think Malthael is a little bit more higher skill cap than that. But anyways, use Q, you extract the souls of nearby enemies afflicted with Reaper's Mark. This includes minions or mercs, anything. Dealing a small amount of damage and healing Malthael for a portion of the damage dealt to each target hit. Now, heroic targets heal Malthael for an additional 3% of the hero's maximum health. This gives a little bit more to the survivability against a lot of melee and tanks, because it's a small heal if you're doing off minions, but it gets to be a lot larger if you're doing it against like a Stitches or a Murd, and especially in Avatar form. I had a situation where I had to solo a Murd and Umbrax's holdout, and he was a little bit surprised when I bullied him off the point there when he was in Avatar form, but it feels pretty good bullying anyone as Malthael. Wraith Strikes his W. It's on a 5-second cooldown, so also a very short cooldown. You instantly teleport through an enemy, so that's really important because you go to the other side of him, so you can do some body blocking. But they have to be afflicted by Reaper's Mark. You deal a small amount of damage, and you refresh Reaper's Mark by doing this. And Death Shroud, 8-second cooldown. This is his E ability. After a quarter of a second, he unleashes a wave of dark myths that applies Reaper's Mark to all the enemies it hits. This is very similar to Leyline Seal in its feel. Yep.
So you know what I liked about these two? And I'm only interrupting you because the E and the W give you a Haunting Wave almost combination. And that's how I was using it when I played him. I would use my E to hit the whole team, and then I use my W to pop on the other side of him, and then start jamming that Soul Rip like as fast as I could. It's crazy.
Yeah, that Wraith Strike can take people by surprise. It's really good for dodging abilities or getting behind someone they're not expecting you to. Yeah. I feel like people are eventually going to kind of get a bit more wise to that kind of playstyle, but still, yeah, it's pretty great. And it's good to point out, too, that Death Shroud doesn't actually do any, like, numbers damage other than the applying the Reaper's Mark, which in itself does damage, but it doesn't actually do any like numbers damage to them. So if you do it on a wave of minions by itself, I mean 2.5% of a minion's health every second is next to nothing. So you've got to combo it with your Soul Rips, with your Wraith Strikes, with your auto attacks to get any sort of meaningful damage out.
Yeah. But the cool thing about that was like it definitely gave you the ability to hit the whole group and then start porting between them, and just like I would just go back and forth QQW, 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 and like just keep ding ding ding, and you just bouncing around them. So it was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, Death Shroud's very important to hit. I feel like if you whiff it, you run out of a little bit of utility there, because instead of having the whole team marked and being able to Wraith Strike, teleport all over the place, you're stuck to whoever you've auto attacked, and having that Reaper's Mark on everybody is a very useful thing, not only for that but also for healing and survivability as well. Which gets us into our heroics. Tormented Souls is one of his heroics. On an 80-second cooldown, you gain 20 armor. That's just baseline armor, not spell or physical armor. And you unleash a torrent of souls, very much like Kerrigan's ultimate, continuing applying Reaper's Mark to enemies for 4 seconds. And then finally, he's got his other heroic, Last Rites. On a 75-second cooldown, you apply a death sentence to an enemy hero that after 2 seconds deals damage equal to 50% of their missing health. So if you do the numbers there, if they're at 33% health and you apply this to them, and when it goes off, that hero will die. It's a repeatable quest. There's a repeatable quest associated with this heroic. Enemies killed while under the effect of Last Rites permanently reduces cooldown by 5 seconds, down to a minimum of 15 seconds. And it takes pretty much the whole game to get down to 15 seconds if you're using this off cooldown the whole time, right? I think we talked about that last show as well. Well, another thing about Last Rites is very similar to Go for the Throat from Greymane. There'll be a little red skull over heroes that you can kill at that current time using the ability if you pick this heroic. So you can kind of keep an eye out for that indicator so you'll know if someone's below 33% health. For the heroics, I don't know, what do you think of the heroics here, Curb?
It's been really interesting to kind of look at them. I haven't had a lot of playtime with them, but what was interesting when I looked at the heroics was that Last Rites sounds super scary. But it's honestly not that far off from a lot of other heroics if you sit down and do the math. Like, I'm kind of going to focus on that one because that's the one that gets attention, right? It's the first execute in the game. more effective against people who are missing health. So 33% of an enemy's health, right? That's the magic number. Because they're missing 2/3 of their health, half of that is 1/3, so 1/3 health, it kills them. Assuming they don't heal or anything like that. So I did the math, and at level 10, obviously versus someone like Chromie, it doesn't do very much damage. It's like 653 damage at level 10, which honestly a lot of other abilities can replicate, but she's super squishy. So we move up to someone like Arthas, a tank. It does deal 1200 damage to Arthas at level 10 if you hit that 2/3 missing health, which is a lot. But there's other ults and abilities that can deal damage like that. The most significant thing here is that you can cast it and have it kick in after delay, right? You know, you don't have to line things up, like you don't have to hit a snipe like Nova does, things like that. But to balance that, it does have a significant cooldown at first, and it's not going to have a low cooldown until you get the snowball rolling. But the other important part is that there is counterplay, because it hits after 2 seconds. So if you have Medivh, you have Karzim, you have Rhaegar, heck, you could even use Tyrael with Sanctification, although that personally seems like a really big cooldown to blow for that.
That's a lot of overkill.
Well, it saves life, though.
Yeah. Depending on the game situation, you know.
Can you imagine if the Tyrael is like, I didn't want to say, I just wanted to save that cooldown, you know? Tough to explain that to your teammate.
Not if it's murky.
Yeah. If you're putting last rites on murky, actually, I was gonna say you're doing it wrong, but I guess if you're trying to get the repeatable quest down.
I mean,
but
he's got invulnerability too, though. Like it's something you want to put on murky.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like last rites is really low value on murky, just because you're trading a really long cooldown for a really short cooldown.
Yeah.
Right.
That is not Murky's invulnerability, but his respawn timer.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. We were in a game and we were winning. We were on the core, and there was a murky being annoying, and the little skull popped up, and I hit him. I lie. I cannot tell a lie, and I would do it again. 10 out of 10.
And honestly, I do think I'd see a lot of Malthaels going Tormented Souls just because of how it interacts with this Q. You know, if you're constantly applying Reaper's Mark to nearby enemies, you don't have to use abilities to apply it. You can just sit there, spam Q, move around, maybe teleport, but, you know, that's your... what is it comparable to? I feel like it's basically like Kerrigan's...
Like Poison Nova almost. Or, more like
I think
Kerrigan's.
Kerrigan's gives you that survivability.
She goes to the Maelstrom, like, if she gets the shields, she puts damage on everyone, she becomes pretty hard to kill.
Yeah.
And she can just go ham on people a lot more safely than normal. And I think that's why a lot of people are picking it, because that's a lot of damage that goes out, especially in that radius. It's what, like, a bit... It's bigger than Arthas's Frost Aura. I know that.
Right.
Yeah, I'd probably say it's fairly comparable in size to Maelstrom, if not exactly the same size as Kerrigan.
Actually, thinking about it, I think that's right on.
Yeah, my impressions of these heroics, I think Last Rites is a bit of a trap. I don't think it's a very powerful heroic. I took it the first few times thinking it was the sexy one, but like you said, there's so much counterplay. You put it on someone. How many times have you probably seen too? Someone gets Last Rites put on them, even though it doesn't get counterplay, but the hero was at maybe 40% health. Yeah. He's running away. Yeah. It doesn't kill him, and you're like, okay, well that feels like a wasted heroic. Whereas
they get the health, or they get it healed.
Exactly. Right. Whereas, or even get like a shield too, because that would go to the shield damage first. But Tormented Souls just plays so well to his kit. And, you know, the funny thing is, I was last writing most of the time until I heard Dunk Train talk about Tormented Souls, and he said he was been dabbling with both, and he said that, you know, whenever he took last rites, he felt like he wished he had Tormented Souls, because that plays what you do. Like, you go in, you have to get your Qs off on as many targets as possible to keep that survivability up. This is the easiest way to do that. Anyone who even comes close to approaching you, not to mention you can warp around and you can reposition yourself pretty effectively, very much like Kerrigan's Leap, and you can get that more like all-in feeling where you can do a lot of damage and you can almost get that get out of jail free card with a lot more survivability too. So I think that's the one to go almost 100% of the time.
The best part about all of this is I think that's what Mystic said last week.
Yeah. Well, like we said, Mystic was right. I was wrong. Again, title of the show, refer to that. I was pretty horrible in my analysis last week looking at what we're looking at here. So let's go over his talents. We'll go over his tree. We'll try to. We've still got a little bit of time since it was light news week, so we'll go over here. But on level 1, he's got 3 abilities to choose from, or talents to choose from. Death's Reach on his W, increase the Wraith Strike range by 35%. On a Pale Horse, which is a passive, gain an additional 20% movement speed while mounted. And Fear the Reaper, it's an activatable trait, cooldown of 25 seconds. Activate to increase movement speed by 25% and pass through other units for 4 seconds. Looking at this, a lot of people are taking Death's Reach to increase Wraith Strike range, but I really like Fear the Reaper. I feel like it gives Malthael that thing that he's missing, which is that way to kind of get away when the going gets rough, because that rough Malthael's got to get going, right? You can go through heroes, very similar to Dehaka when he's got Brush Stalker going, or whatever it's called. And it's on a
Dark Swarm.
Dark Swarm. It's on a fairly short cooldown too, so it's nice. You have it up pretty much in most engages as well.
Sorry, go ahead.
Now, what do you guys think about this talent tier?
I just dislike On a Pale Horse. I feel like they wanted to come up with something cool there, but couldn't, and went with that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, it would be kind of cool if it decreased the mount channel time or something like that.
Right, like you mount twice as fast or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Let him get onto the horse,
The problem with On a Pale Horse is it doesn't give you any in-fight utility at all. Right. It helps you get, I guess, from A to B a little bit faster, maybe on those big maps. But really, what are you talking about? Like an extra 2 seconds saved? You don't. And then you're running ahead of your team. Where's that benefit you, right? If you're faster than everybody else in your team.
That's what Ogre in chat says. On a Pale Horse is great for big maps. But sorry, Curb. I agree with Daz. Like, you get there first. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, shit. Now I still gotta wait for the tank to get here, or I'm dead.
The other thing I can see it be useful for is that in the pre-engagement stage, people are throwing out skill shots. They're trying to hit you as you're engaging. You could conceivably have a use for it because you move considerably faster than anyone else. So it does let you dodge, which is a legitimate use of mount. But on the other hand, you're the melee. Like, I can understand this for a ranged squishy who's trying to get into position without getting tagged, but...
It's a very common place I always see with Genji now with his level 1 talent where he can get the larger leap,
it's
right?
so good!
I know. And again, another talent that we made fun of when we saw it, and then we realized that it was actually the stronger talent to take.
I watched McIntyre's video.
Mystic told us we were wrong about that talent.
Turns out I need to listen to Mystic more often, because he's usually right about these things.
Picking that talent has turned around my Genji play significantly.
Yeah. It's amazing how much that lets you engage and still keep your E off a cooldown, too, which is like the big, bonus to that. It's pretty much like a bonus E, right, to do the engage, and you can still disengage as well.
And I think Malthael could find use for that if he had an engage style, right? If he was a heavy engage burst character, but he's not.
Right.
Yeah, I was trying to think like if you could get some additional engage from this On a Pale Horse talent, but the problem is like I was like maybe it'll increase the range of his W by 50% or something like while he's mounted. But the problem is you need to get that death's mark on people or whatever the mark's called before you can actually use something. So you wouldn't.
And casting that requires using an ability.
Exactly.
Which dismounts you.
So
right.
Interesting talent. I wonder where they're gonna go. I can't see many people taking that, and I don't think many people are at the moment. Okay,
what about how big is his W range? If you could eyeball it, I haven't played with him enough.
I'd say it's longer than a Vala Vault.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Death's Reach does have, but the only problem I can see is that Death's Reach, it does require you to get that tag on people.
Yeah,
but his E has a decent range on it.
Yeah, the death streak.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, death streak is good if you're chasing a character too. I mean, generally it's not too much of an issue, but your your W's on a 5-second cooldown. Your Reaper's Mark is only for 4 seconds, so there is a bit of a gap there where like they might just get out of range. So having the extra 35% might help you like follow whoever you're trying to finish off, and it's it's fun following someone 1v1. You pretty much 1v1 anyone as Malthael.
Yeah.
And what I like about that is that pairs up really nicely with throwing shade on level 4, like really nicely with throwing shade.
Maybe we should segue into that. At level 4, he's got 3 talents you can choose from as well. Throwing shade on his E. Quest: hit 20 heroes with Death Shroud. This gives you a permanent increase in Death Shroud's rage by 33% and reducing his cooldown by 2 seconds. He's got Die Alone on his Q. Soul Rip deals 75% more damage if it hits only one hero and no other enemies. Remember, Die Alone's on a 2-second cooldown. And finally, Black Harvest. This applies to his trade. It's a questing talent. Apply Reaper's Mark to heroes for a total of 150 seconds, and the reward you get is permanently increase Reaper's Mark's duration by 2 seconds. Now, I like Black Harvest or Die Alone here. Die Alone, if you find yourself solo laning, it can be very useful. But Black Harvest is nice too. Getting the extra 2 seconds on your Reaper's Mark from 4 to 6 seconds. Because one of the problems with the Reaper's Mark is it gives you mobility too, having it on people. So you keep it on them for 2 seconds longer. You can Wraith. I keep using. I'm horrible with names, by the way, Curb. You can use your W like with more ease because your Reaper's Mark will stay on people longer. Not to mention later on there's some talents that double the damage from your Reaper's Mark if you have it on people longer, so that helps it there.
And I mean even baseline, that takes Reaper's Mark from 10% of their health to 15% of their health.
Yeah.
That's pretty significant on its own.
I'm just throwing out there. Throwing shade let me move around a whole lot.
Okay, you keep taking your throwing shade there, Liqiud.
I mean, I finished that quest in like 3 engagements because I wasn't solo, right? I was with the group. We would get into these little 4-man skirmishes. You throw it twice, once at the beginning, once at the end. That's, that's 6 to 8 hits right there. And getting it longer by 33% and reducing the cooldown. So it's up almost every time your W is up. You can hit it, and then you're porting around like a maniac.
Yep. Different play styles, I guess.
Right.
I could see if Blizzard does come in and sees that, say, Black Harvest is a stronger talent here, that they could change that quest to make it a little bit more difficult to complete, because it is fairly easy to complete again at 150 seconds. It's the kind of questing talent that you don't even have to think about. It just happens naturally.
You just hit them.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's part of what you do.
Later.
There's nothing worse, like Thrall's dual hit on his lightning. Oh, man. Sitting there being like, trying to get the right angle so it hits the 2 heroes without hitting minions can be really frustrating. I feel like I'm always at a position trying to get stacks on that. Whereas this, you don't even have to think about it.
I haven't gotten to play a lot of Thrall yet, but I can see that quest being very frustrating.
Because it doesn't just prioritizes the nearest minion or whatever it is to your initial target. And sometimes I think it's kind of random too, because you'll go up and you'll be like, why is it in the 2 heroes? I need to finish this damn quest. But anyhow, it just, I guess you don't finish it, but
anyway,
keep stacking.
Also, does Die Alone only affects the flat damage, correct? Because it doesn't augment Reaper's Mark.
Yeah, Then the healing is not affected by the damage output. It's the healing.
Really?
Yeah, because
because the
healing's percentage base would be like 3%.
It's the whole drain life thing too, right?
Yes.
Wait, no. Does hold on, because Malthael's does have a flat heal component. But it's independent of the damage.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just a number, and then he does percentage based healing based on who he's hitting heroic targets.
Okay, so that's baseline 175 damage. That's pretty strong, actually.
Every 2 seconds, or even less if you spec into it too, because you can reduce the cooldown on your Q as well.
Yeah.
Throwing shade, man.
Yeah.
Here to here.
And again, segueing into level 7 here, Cold Hand Soul Rip slows enemies by 20% for 2.5 seconds. Mortality on his W. When damaging a hero, Ray Strike deals bonus damage equal to 4% of the hero's maximum health. Touch of Death. It's an activatable trait. Cooldown of 30 seconds. Activate to reduce healing received by heroes afflicted by Reaper's Mark by 50% for 4 seconds.
That one is so fun.
I think they're all fairly viable in different situations here. This is a pretty balanced tier, I think.
Absolutely. It's what really catches my eye is that Touch of Death is easily like the most potent version of this effect that we've found, right? Like, we've had reduces healing effects before, but the number of targets that this is able to affect, I don't think there's any talent that comes close to this. Like, maybe Varian's reduced healing, where Mortal Strike reduces your healing, but I don't think you can get Heroic Strike to proc that often, even with the parry reductions.
You can't. This is the only thing that will reduce an entire team's healing received across the board.
That's just disgusting.
Malfurion's got something similar, but you gotta root them all, right? And I feel like it's a weaker talent.
I forgot about that.
But that's
weaker because there's a delay and it's only for a short period of time, whereas this is 4 seconds. I feel like
6 or 6 seconds. Like, if you
no,
it's just it's a flat 4. It's a flat 4.
Oh, it's not for the duration of the.
I mean I was thinking the amount of time that you have to
Yeah.
trigger it. So if you hit them sometime within the last 6 seconds,
then you can hit it. So here's what I've figured out. I like the least picked talents in Malthael. Because Touch of Death was my go-to, and that has the lowest pick rate. So, what do I know?
Well, Cold Hand's great for escape. You get 20% slowing of the enemies, or just zone controlling, especially when you're in that. You've got them on your ultimate too, right? You
escape.
Pretty much permanent 20% slow.
Oh man.
Mortality's great against tanks too. That's a lot of damage. All of a sudden your Ace Strike has 4% damage every 5 seconds to a heroic target.
And that's instant.
I know. It's a great finisher too, because you can do it from a distance, right? You got that jump. Like I said, it's a bit longer probably than Vala's Vault. And not to mention, you're behind them. You can body block them a bit, and your W will be up again. Next thing you know,
suddenly you can pretend like you're Zeratul.
Exactly. Well, that's what it feels like sometimes. But yeah, Touch of Death. I feel like this is really easy to catch things like an Ancestral, like anything like that, like Malfurion's Root. The problem with that is, like, let's say you see Rhaegar's Ancestral going off on a target. Are you really going to be able to have like the dexterity to root them in time to catch it? Probably not.
What's even the delay on root? Like,
well, exactly.
Longer than the Ancestral.
It's close. I mean, it's close. My point is, like, you're not gonna be able to predict it. Even if you're like amazingly good, you'd be like, that guy's about to get an Ancestral. You root him, maybe like once in a blue moon, you'll be able to root him in time for it to go.
Like that guy's gonna get Ancestral. Here, I'll hit them, and then I'll hit this button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's all you have to do, right? And
it's up every 30 seconds.
So that can be pretty powerful, especially in coordinated play, I think. And not to mention, like, it synergizes really well with your ultimate, where you're applying Reaper's Mark to everybody. You can pretty much get reduce 50% healing for that amount if you're in a double healing comp against double healing comp.
This is why I don't. All right, I'm gonna transition us again, because this is what I don't understand. How are people not taking Ethereal Existence when you go, was it Tormented Souls? And you have Touch of Death? Like, it seems like a natural,
Yeah, well, Touch of Death is higher skill cap, right? So I think
you press 1.
Well, it's still an extra button.
You do have to spread the Reaper's Mark pretty effectively.
Yeah,
that's what your E is for. That's why you're going.
I guess it's also why your ult
throwing shade at 4.
Your ult is for.
The other things just happen, right? Anything that gives you another button that makes you have to make that choice.
Piano Malthael.
Yeah, which can happen too. We can get Piano Malthael. Like, almost every talent tier has got an activatable trait. Okay, let's move on to level 13 then. So we got Soul Siphon on his Q. Increase Soul Rip's bonus healing from heroes to 4% of the hero's maximum health, up from 3. Ethereal Existence, goes with his trait. Gain 15 physical armor per enemy hero afflicted by Reaper's Mark, up to a maximum of 45. Now, I believe this does stack with his ultimate too, so you can get up to 65, which, and 20 of that would be also spell.
That should.
Yeah, because it should go up to 20 to 75, because they're two different sources. I mean, like, it's the game caps it at 75. You wouldn't hit it here, but and again, if you got your ultimate up, see, that's another reason I feel like the ultimate Tormented Souls is really the way to go. It just synergizes with so many things that he does, right? It's kind of hard to like go against it, but you can get a lot of physical armor there. Inevitable End is an activatable talent that you can take on this tier. Cooldown 30 seconds. If you want to go Piano Key Malthael, you can choose this, or the next one actually too. You can activate it, become unstoppable for 2 seconds, but remove all active Reaper's marks. So like a little bit of a cleanse. You can't obviously use this if you're stunned, but you can use it to get out of roots or pre-cleanse yourself. Then Shroud of Wisdom, it's an activatable again, cooldown of 30 seconds. After 2 seconds, gain 50 spell armor for 4 seconds. And it's really important to note, you do have 2 seconds on this, so you can't just use it to counter immediate bursts. But that being said, a little Pyroblast on you, you got lots of time. So, Kurt, what do you like on this talent tier here?
You know, this is a bunch of really weird options.
It's okay. It's okay. It's just ethereal existence is life. That's
I'm trying to remember. Do most of the activatable spell shields? I need to look up. How long does Tychus' spell shield last?
Most of them just. I mean, okay, so you're talking about Tychus's. I think it's 4 seconds as well, but
yeah,
most of them proc instantly, right? So you
yeah,
just
it's the
press
2
it.
seconds,
right,
which is brutal.
Yeah. My personal favorites in this talent tier are Soul Siphon and Ethereal Existence. I like getting the bonus healing. Even though it's only 1 extra %, if you smear that around a few heroes, that can be a lot of extra healing. And Ethereal Existence, if you're going up against your Butchers, your Rainers, auto attackers, 45 armor, especially if you're in your ultimate form with your big shroud around you. Like, you can get 65 physical armor and 20 spell armor. That makes you pretty tanky.
The only reason I can think of it not being as popular is just because Malthael is the sort of character who invites cooldowns being used on him. You know, a lot of abilities. And Ethereal Existence doesn't really do anything.
Well, they've only got so many abilities, right? Like Butcher, Rainer, like so Soul Siphon and Ethereal Existence are the 2 I used. Ethereal Existence, we played against an auto attack team, a team.
Oh well, yeah, that's just
right. And so it was
sick.
like, dude, okay.
You do nothing.
You literally, like, Ogre has it right in chat. Ethereal Existence, Tormented Soul, it's like, come at me. What do you got? And I took it a step further because I had thrown shade. So I was just like, pew, and the wave would go out, and I'd be like, yep, all right, you guys can't hurt me for, like, 8 seconds.
Yep. This is I think this is a very, like, comp-dependent talent tier.
Yes.
The one downside again to Shroud of Wisdom, I'd say, is that it's an activatable on 30-second cooldowns, and there's the 2-second delay. Whereas Ethereal Existence, it just happens when you're affecting people with Ethereal with your Reaper's Mark, which is pretty much all the time. When
I really wish Shroud did something additional.
Or just not have 2-second delay.
Yeah, that's the thing. If it was instant, it wouldn't matter. It would be fine. It's the 2-second delay that you got to deal with. That's where the problem is.
I mean, it's an interesting idea.
Right.
The fact that it's like this spell shield that you have to have foresight to use. Although, when I think about it, the windups for most of the abilities in the game, they are a lot shorter than 2 seconds.
I'd assume...
Like, even Chromie will hit you before you can finish activating Shroud of Wisdom.
I'd almost say, you have to use this just when you're going into an engage, when you are expecting people to start throwing cooldowns at you. Like, let's say you're like going and you're like, I'm going in, you pop. It's like Sonya's ultimate, right? Her Berserker or whatever rage. It's the same thing. It's like, you're going in, you pop it, you go in, and then you just get the benefit of having 4 seconds of spell armor, I guess.
The problem with that, though, is most better people know to use their weaker abilities against you first to proc that spell shield.
Most. Either way,
I said most.
Yeah, I do think Shroud is probably the lesser of the talents. Even in Inevitable End, the pre-cleanse is nice.
I'm trying to figure out when I would use Inevitable End, honestly.
Zool, if Zool's got a root on you or something. If you're playing against Zools, your Malfurions, like those, like a lot of roots, I can see having a lot of benefit there.
Just if you really, really have to get out, but the fact that it completely destroys your offensive capability. Mm-hmm. Actually, what's with that? They changed Bolt of the Storm because it was being used too defensively, and they wanted it to be used aggressively. And then they give Malthael this, which is like only usable defensively.
Right.
Unless you wanted to use it to like go and do some melees against an ETC doing a mosh pit. You get unstoppable, run to the mosh pit, hit him a few times.
Hit him a couple of times.
Then you're stunned.
Then you get stunned and then you die.
GG.
Okay, level 16, we've got Soul Collector on his Q, reduce Soul Rip's cooldown by half a second, and increase its range by 50%. Significant. Massacre on his W, Race Strike now damages and applies Reaper's Mark to enemies around its target. Memento Mori, this is its trait, it goes for his trait. Reaper's Mark does 100% increased damage after afflicting an enemy for more than 4 seconds. So that last one definitely synergizes with increasing it from 4 to 6 because it automatically would happen there. I think I've been taking Memento Mori most of the time here. I can see an argument for Soul Collector as well to get that extra healing out if people are a little bit more spread. Plus you get 0.5 seconds might sound like a lot, but you've got generally a 2-second cooldown. That's 25% reduction on the cooldown right there. So that's a lot.
Also,
extra healing.
I'm thinking about that range. Isn't that basically Phoenix sized once you get that upgrade?
Yeah.
Must be pretty close. Yeah.
Again, I go with the lesser picked.
Tell me you go Massacre.
I do. I mean, think about
Liquid's
it. Like,
Liquid's build.
Fine. Right? Like it worked because now when you're hopping around. So all right, now just Shadow build Malthael. People think I'm crazy. Like I totally get it. I probably am Looney Tunes. There's a reason I play tank, guys. It's because I'm not good at things that aren't tank. But just bear with me for a minute. You get Massacre and you throw Shade and then you pop. You're literally just WQQ, 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 but you're constantly popping around and you're affecting everybody. So you get this like big moshy pit fight going on. Like the longer, like I truly treat him like a true sustained damage character, right? So you get those longer fights where you're like, this fight's gonna last more than 20 seconds, and you're just nonstop refreshing, nonstop doing damage, and no one can touch you because you have 45 physical armor. You're constantly healing off of everybody, and you're just popping around like keeping them all taking that 2.5% tick damage like nonstop. So it's a different way to play. I would almost describe it as like very Tracer-esque because you're just moving around like popping your skills like. And you have to, man, it's tiring on your finger. And for me, like my QWE and R are all on my thumb buttons on my Naga Hex. So like my thumb was tired. The one game I got this to work was the Samuro game. My thumb was like beat after I was done. But towards the end of the fight, it was literally WQQ, WQQ, WQQ. And I would just pop around and I wasn't getting kills, but everybody was so low that the Li Ming was reset. Like, literally, the Li Ming came in and went reset, 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 reset. We won the game because we just 5-man wiped them.
That is interesting because, I mean, it does allow you to really quickly escalate your Reaper's Mark.
Right.
The way, like that.
Yeah, and
it's weird. I get it. It's not the play style for everybody. It's definitely the least picked talents, but like it synergizes really well.
Hey, it doesn't. Least picked talents doesn't mean much. Like we found out with Genji, right? Like his least picked talent off the hop ended up at level 1, ended up being his more popular one after people realized how popular, like how good it was. Right. It's the kind of thing like, hey, it may not seem sexy, then I might go for other ones, but then after you realize, okay, this is garbage, maybe we should go for a different talent. People quickly switch their opinions.
Well, and you know what he felt like? He felt very much like who's the shotgun guy in Overwatch?
Reaper?
Yes. He felt very much like that.
Yeah.
Playing that style.
Yeah.
So,
ghosting around. Yeah.
Which,
I mean, this is a pretty strong talent tier, regardless of how you look at it. I mean, you're sitting there saying, you can put 2.5% damage per second on everybody. I'm looking at Memento Mori and be like, well, I can make that 5%.
Right. Well, right. You can, right? But I can keep it constantly spread around the entire group with Massacre.
And I guess my other argument against something like Massacre is that if you've got your ultimate pop, I mean, I guess your ultimate's only for 4 seconds, it does become a moot talent, whereas, your Soul Collector and your Memento Mori can have additional value there.
That's obviously why you go last rights.
Yeah.
Well, it's a weird. Well, so that wasn't the game. That was the game I actually went the other one. I didn't go last rights. I went the armor one. Because again, it was Samuro, right? So like, why would I give up the physical damage? But again, it was Samuro. So having 2 additional bodies on the field made it was like, dude, this is great because it's 2 more places for me to pop and 2 more places for me to then spread from. So like, the game I played this shadow build Malthael in was like very like, it worked against the team we were playing. It was it was this like QM matchmaking at its finest. They had Samuro, they had Raynor, they had oh man, they had one more AA type. Oh, Azul Jin, and then they had like, I want to say it was Varian, but I'm not sure, and like a Brightwing or something like. No, it wasn't Brightwing because it was a single target healer.
You're really trying to make an argument for that physical armor.
No,
trait.
I'm not, man. I'm not like. I'm just saying, like in this game, it totally made sense to do this, right? So it was like, I can't not pick these talents because these talents are gonna like against this comp that we're playing against. It's just gonna absolutely destroy, right? And so it did. So I guess my point is, even though it's a lesser pick talent, against the right comp, like the value is huge.
And that's what Blizzard wants from all these too. They, they say like, hey, this might not be the talent you want all the time, but they all have a place, and that's the important part to talent diversity. Is not necessarily being the most popular pick, but being able to identify and take talents that make sense in those situations. I think that's a mark of a very good player, is one who doesn't just say, hey, this is my build, I'm always taking this build. Maybe certain characters that's the way you have to go, but often in case there are better choices to be made based on who the other team is or who your team is too.
Right.
So level 20, we've got Reaper of Souls. While Tormented Souls is active, hero takedowns extend its duration by 4 seconds. Angel of Death, last right heals for 100% of the damage dealt, and its current and future cooldown reduction bonuses are doubled. Final Curtain, this procs E, so Death Shroud leaves a trail in its wake for 4 seconds, applying Reaper's Mark to enemies in its area. And then finally, No One Can Stop Death, an activatable trait, cooldown of 180 seconds. Activate while dead to immediately respawn to an altar, but increase Malthael's next respawn time by 25 seconds. What do you guys like here? Curb, how about we start with you?
I look at these and like, it's got to be Final Curtain for me. What I really enjoy about this is the way you could just create this zone that continuously applies Reaper's Mark. Because one of the challenges with his E is that if you miss, well, or if you don't hit a lot of people with it, well, you just lost the value out of it. Now you put it down and it's like, all right, now there's this zone where if you step into it, you're taking 10% of your health. Boom. Which, honestly, the really funny thing here is if that's like half of Probius's Null Gate.
Right.
Like you have, now it's granted, it's a hero's terrible heroic, but this is like half of another hero's heroic right here in this talent.
Right.
And better.
So, I went Final Curtain in that game because, I was having fun with my E, and I wanted to play with it a little just to kind of experiment. And I was using my E a lot, so it was like, it's cool. Let me try this, right?
I forget, what's the cooldown on E?
8 seconds, but you can get down to 6 with that questing talent that Liqiud likes.
Yeah. So
yeah, throwing shade at 4.
But my problem was, man, Reaper of Souls just sounds really, really good.
I disagree.
Yeah, I look at that, I'm like, see, the problem I have with Reaper of Souls, right?
Yep.
Is that A, your ult is something that you want to use to really kick off a team fight and engage. And
right.
B,
okay.
You have to get kills during the duration of your ult, and that time is not very long. You know, like,
yeah.
If instead it was like takedowns reduce the cooldown of your ult, it would be really good.
So, I mean, I ended up going Final Curtain, but here was my thought process, because I actually took, like, probably 10 seconds before I picked my level 20 talent that game. So my thought process was, if I'm spreading all of my damage using my E right now, right? Like, I'd hit my E, then I'd be popping around with my W, and like boom, I'm fine. Like my damage is spread. I can continue to reapply it. Everything's good, right?
Yeah.
So I don't need that. I didn't need that initiation of I'm gonna get in the middle of the team and then like poison over these guys to make sure that they're all under my dot, right?
Okay.
So if I didn't need that to initiate the fight, and I really only needed that to get the bonus armor, like, does it make sense to save it until I've already spread it and I'm starting to take damage? Then I pop my R, which in addition to giving me the armor basically refreshes my dot on everybody. And hopefully at this point, like, because at this point of the game, right, you really know if you, by this point you can kind of time when you're going to get your takedowns. So you know if you need this to initiate, or if it's like, is it a win more talent and keep me alive just so I can help finish off those last couple of hits? Because if I could survive for another like 3 seconds, that's you know, that's long enough to hit one more W and 2 more Qs, and now all of a sudden, right? So like
I definitely I wouldn't call it a win more talent, that's for sure.
Right.
Because it's what I kind of think of as a tipping point talent, you know?
Yes.
It's like a Leeming reset. If you hit one, you start snowballing. Right?
And I think Ogre hits it right. Take Reaper of Souls if you're pushing or winning, or against like Vikings or in this case Samuro. Now I still went Final Curtain, and I don't regret that decision, but I think there's a place for Reaper of Souls, and my point would be by the time you hit 20, you as a player should have a good understanding of whether or not you will get value on that talent, right? It's
I guess it's kind of when you pop R, it's like, can I get a takedown in 4 seconds? I have 4 seconds to get a takedown.
One of the
by the time you hit 20, you know that, right?
Yeah.
In theory.
Yeah, I felt like I was using my ultimate more as like almost like off the top of the initiation of the team fight and everything too, and it feels like it's more like a bit of a sustain ultimate, like a sustain damage as well as sustaining yourself.
Yeah.
But it's not really a finisher, which could I mean you can finish while using it, but I feel like again Ogre, which is being very chatty in the chat here, is saying like there's no guarantee on the value. And that's where, like, Final Curtain, I feel like you pretty much guarantee you're getting value out of that most of the time. So Reaper of Souls, I'd say, is a very, like, if you're good, if you're rich, or you know any other players who can definitely like time those takedowns appropriately, which I am definitely not one of.
Or like if you're working with a coordinated team, even, you know. Then you know, okay, we've got someone we can focus, we can blow up, so I can go in there, pop my ult.
Yeah.
Once we get a blow up, it doesn't even have to be someone affected by Reaper's Mark. You know?
I would put forward this, and first, I agree with everything you're both saying. But let me ask you this, Daz, because you brought up a point that I want to like drill into a little bit. You saw your ultimate, Tormented Souls, as being the initiation.
I should
because you wanted to spread the dot immediately to everybody, or why?
I shouldn't say that necessarily. Like I find that I usually pop it a few seconds into the team fight once my health gets down a little bit lower, and say my E's on cooldown, and I'm looking at the end of like maybe my mark hitting a lot of people, because then I'd use it. You know, maybe everyone's kind of like a little bit lower in health, but not like sitting there about to die. But I need the healing, I need the sustain, and the pressure on the other team. But that being said, like you guys are saying, like if you can time this, even like if you just pop it right as a kill is about to happen, you get an 8-second ultimate all of a sudden, right? You said it doesn't have to be, they don't have to be affected by your mark. It just has to be a takedown during Reaper of Souls. So you can pop it the second you know a takedown's about to happen. You've got 8 second.
And now you have 8 seconds.
Yeah, right off the bat. Like it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be using your like both of you are saying. You don't have to be using your abilities to make the takedown happen. It can be somebody else.
So that's also why I like Massacre at 16 though, because having that AOE when you port like helps with everything, right? Like it all kind of flowed together that game. And you know what? For all I know, like the team I was playing was just trash, and so like, like I'm completely crazy. This build is whack, and the only reason it worked was I played against a team that didn't know what they were doing against Malthael. So it was just like this is like the best moment of my Malthael career, right? Like, That's always possible.
You guys have sold me a little bit on Reaper Souls. I think I'll still mostly take Final Curtain, just so I feel like my skill level isn't quite up there enough for Reaper Souls to time that properly.
Also, I will note that a potential problem with Reaper Souls is that so much of your damage is DOT.
Right.
And it happens to last exactly 4 seconds, which is as long as Reaper of Souls lasts. So a lot of that damage over time that's going out won't give you a takedown during the time frame of Tormented Souls. So
you definitely want like a Li Ming or a Genji or something that's gonna thrive off the resets, a gray main, right? Something that's gonna hit the resets and can like really start snowballing, because then you can snowball with that.
I think we can all agree, though, at least maybe not, that no one can stop death, the activatable that gives you an instant respawn with a 25% increased respawn time next go. Do you guys feel like that's a trap talent?
Yes.
It's funny how we just all ignored that.
But the funny thing is, it's the second highest pick talent on Hot Slogs, and it's like, why would you do that to yourself? Don't do it.
It sounds great. You know,
oh, yeah.
And I guess if there's a team fight you have to finish at level 20, you can pretend like you're Diablo. But honestly, by the time you get out there, the fight's probably over.
Unless they're on your core and you need to pop back up to try and defend your core, that talent is useless.
But at that point, you either have to have snap picked it by hitting level 20 at that point,
right,
or you have to know you're going to be in that situation later.
Which is like, you just wasted your level 20 talent pick.
Because late game, where your death timer is like 80 seconds type thing too, like you're adding an extra 25% on that, you're staggering your death timers if you die a couple times, right?
Yep.
So I don't know. It seems like the trap talent. It's an interesting one, but
30% of people pick it.
I mean, who doesn't like being able to instantly resurrect?
Yeah. Well, I didn't die, guys. Look, I'm just back at the core.
This is like what I kind of wish Diablo was, right? I wish I could have the ability to choose whether or not I wanted to res right away and lose my souls, because I would never choose it unless it was a clutch situation that I absolutely had to pick it in, and then I wouldn't mind losing my souls. Okay,
so what do we think of Malthael in general? Does he have a place? Were we going to see him in competitive play, Liqiud? What do you guys think?
That's a good question. If I was to look at him right now, I would say probably.
He definitely needs focus when you're in a fight. And you need to focus on the Malthael and take him down quickly. The only problem is he can get a lot of armor, and you can waste a lot of abilities on him when he's got his ultimate going. So he can be a difficult hero to focus and take a lot of time and resources on.
But he's like other... It's hard because when an assassin comes out, if they don't seem overpowered in a certain way right away, it's hard to say, yes, we'll see them in competitive play, because he suffers from the same problem that every other damaged character suffers from. If I stun you before you do anything, you're gonna die. I mean, today we were seeing almost like in WoW, I would have called it you got blown up in a global, right? Because it was like it only takes that single stun and you're done. Right, because everybody pops their global cooldown skills and boom, you're dead, right? And like we saw the same stuff going on to other assassin type characters and other solo laners, and Malthael isn't any stronger than any of those people. He just does a lot of AoE damage, so I think there's a good chance we'll see him, but the comps will be very specific. I don't think you're gonna see him first pick. I could be wrong though. I mean, you got people like ADRD out there that are going to be like, you know, it would be great, dude, if we did this comp and we first pick Malthael because they won't know what we're going to build from there. And then we can slow roll the rest of the draft and do these things. And then we have this like insanely good team for this like great team fight on this 2-lane map like Braxis. And we're going to roll them so hard, right? So like there's people out there that do things like that I think will cause us to see play right away. When we get into phase 2 of HGC, I definitely think we'll see it in open division. I definitely think we'll see it in some of the amateur tournaments. The only question is, you know, are we going to see it from like a top 8 team, right? Are we going to see it from the major region top 8? That's a better question and one I'm not sure about yet.
Well, he's got to replace the role of a bruiser or melee assassin, like take your spot as like, you know, the Alarak, or I mean, you don't see much Thrall these days, but Thrall or your second tank too, right? You might not want to dual tank and Malthael as well.
Right. Well, and another point that TBU the Tiny just brought up that I didn't even think of when I was, you know, doing one of my Liqiud rants. Shields really affect him in his damage output. And shields are the in thing.
One thing to note: if you do have your mark on someone that it has a shield on them, you won't be able to see it in their health bar. However, they still are affected by it, and you can still use your W on them. So just something to kind of keep in mind, especially like I was landing against a Chen and doing a lot of jumping around. I mean, it is frustrating to get through those shields, but shields don't last forever.
Right, but like we see a lot of shields now, so
and death is inevitable, right?
Right, exactly. So.
Any final thoughts, Curb, on Malthael? What do you think of him?
You know, I'd love to get some playtime on him soon. He's an interesting kit. I like that they're branching out into more percentile damage in a different way, like the ongoing percentile damage. That's a neat mix of traits in the game. He seems very good. Quick aside, for anyone listening, there is a current visual bug on Battlefield of Eternity. He does not deal as much damage as it looks like he's dealing, because the health bars show like he's dealing 2.5% of the health bar, but in reality, all percentile damage is capped at like, what is it, like 36, something like 3,600 plus 3% base health?
It scales with the leveling. So I noticed that too. There was a point where I was like, I just gotta get like one more E on that immortal and I'll die. And it was all covered in poison. I was like, okay, I've done my job, I can leave. But then you'll notice that the poison starts to shift smaller, and for whatever reason doesn't show the true amount of damage it's gonna do, and it ended up with a sliver of health at the end. I ended up dead, and we didn't get the immortal. So
that's brutal.
I didn't get to say worth.
Brutal.
Yeah, so that is a good point, because it does seem like 2.5% on these, you know, large immortals or any sort of like larger monster type bits in the game or objectives, like you don't get the full 2.5%.
So he's not as like super busted late game against immortals as he might think.
Yeah,
as you might think.
You still get a decent amount of damage, but yeah, it does. It's somewhere like I think all the heroes you'd still get 2.5%. Maybe not necessarily like your like Cho'Gall. Like say,
I think Cho'Gall is beneath the cap, but somebody said he does eventually scale past it at like higher levels because he scales faster than 4% per level, which is the standard used.
Yeah. So I mean, this cap I think is something they don't really publicize too much, but it is for this specific reason. You don't want you know Malthael sitting there and just destroying, especially like you said, late game immortals and such, which have like huge amounts of health. Cool. Well, I think we're gonna wrap the show up there. Curb, thanks so much for coming on. It was great. Last minute, I mean, we had to start the show about 5 minutes late because your Skype wasn't booting up properly. We all love Skype so much.
The day Discord adds camera functionality is the day my Skype gets uninstalled.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for listening to the Nexus Trolls, a Heroes of the Storm podcast, which we stream live on this Twitch channel, twitch.tv/trollsgg, every week on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. So Curb, if people are looking to find you on the interwebs, where can they find you?
I'm going to say that it's mostly going to be on Twitter these days. I do have a Twitch channel, and I've done some stuff there in the past. I don't do a lot of things there now, but I am looking to maybe branch into some gaming streaming. I haven't changed the name yet, but I am looking at changing the name over to Curubethion as well.
Yep. So
I need to check, make sure nobody's stolen that.
So it's just at Curubethion. It's Curubethion. Surprisingly, for a long name, it's actually fairly easy to pronounce. Most names are that long. I was like, how'd you say that? I was like, oh, Curubethion, I guess. And I guess I was right there, too. So.
That's really funny because I think you're literally the first person who hasn't had trouble. You should have heard me. I went to this Hearthstone tournament, and the casters were just like tripping over the name left and right.
Yeah, funny note, my battle tag used to be Dazander, and then I shortened it to Daz when I think Overwatch came out, because they allowed you to do that, and Dazander was some like random auto-generated name, and I didn't like it in the first place. It's just one I got stuck with because I think I started playing like WoW on a trial, and it just happened to pick it. So I ended up shortening it to Daz when I got the first opportunity. But you can call him Curb too, because that's what me and Liqiud call him at least. So Liqiud, where can people find you?
So the best place is Twitter and Twitch, at LiqiudGG, LiQIUDGG. I stream Chair League, I stream HGC Open Division, and both of those will be starting up soon, next month it looks like. So back to streaming at least twice a week. You can also find me right here on this channel in about 12 minutes. Bags and I will be doing our Troll and HGC show next. Lots to talk about. Mid Season Brawl, the end of roster apocalypse for Phase 1, predictions, all that Heroes esports stuff that we, sit here and talk about for an hour to an hour and a half every week. So,
yeah. And you can also find that show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher,
everywhere.
all the places now too. I think last week
everywhere.
it wasn't up on iTunes yet, but it's there now. So you can just search for Trollin HGC. Trollin, there's no G on the end of Trollin HGC. When I was starting to put up all the websites and stuff for that, I was like, is there a G on? I couldn't remember if there's an apostrophe, but no apostrophe, no G on the end. And you
also, good news, I just changed my Twitch.
Oh, sweet.
It is
Well,
now
there it is
twitch.tv/Curubethion.
Perfect. Now everyone knows. We'll make sure that's in the show notes as well for those of you interested. And you can find me at DazHots on Twitter as well. So thanks again to all our patron supporters. If you like the show and you're looking away for supporting us, you can do so at patreon.com/trollsgg. You can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you happen to find your podcasts online. You can visit our website at trolls.gg/TheNexusTrolls to watch this and past shows, along with video streams, past video streams, which can also be found on our YouTube channel. For announcements for the show and general Heroes of the Storm news, follow us on Twitter at TheNexusTrolls. If you want to hang out with us, or any of the Trolls community in-game, you can also /join TrollsGG in-game. We'll be there. If you used to /join the Nexus Trolls, we're deprecating that one. And we're moving over to TrollsGG to support the TrollsGG podcasting network, which we as the Nexus Trolls and Troll and HGC are now a part of. And finally, if you need to get in touch with us, the best way is by email at TheNexusTrolls@trolls.gg. So everybody, thanks for listening. Have a great week.